recording again. So has anyone seen the preview for the new Fred Hampton movie they put out? I think it's a Ryan Coogler film, meaning the guy who did well, I guess he did Black Panther, right?
Yeah, he did. Yes,
and
he did.
Creed, did he do Creed as well?
He did do Creed.
Yeah, it's an interesting looking preview. And it's got what's his Stansfield? No, Keith. What's his? He's got a weird name.
Lakeith Stanfield.
Oh, Lakeith Stanfield, isn't it?
Oh, he's playing him.
The guy
well,
from
not
Get
playing.
Out?
Well, not playing him, but playing a character. I think playing him is Daniel Kaluuya.
Also from Get Out.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Playing Fred Hampton, if I'm not mistaken.
Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton, Black Panther, killed by the man. Back in the day.
I don't know what we're talking about. I just got back.
We're talking about a new Ryan Coogler movie, guy who did Black Panther, who is doing a Fred Hampton film starring Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out and Lakeith Stanfield from Get Out.
Oh, yeah. Ryan Coogler is producing it, but he's not directing it.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. But yeah.
So those other films we named, he actually directed.
Yes.
Okay.
But so wait, Lakeith Stanfield is playing the guy who killed Fred Hampton. Is that right?
Well, spoiler alert. I don't know. I don't know. It looks like
Is that what you said? I thought that's what you said. I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't say that, but it's fine. It's history, so it's not really a spoiler alert. But it looks like he is playing maybe like a plant. It looks like maybe he was caught by the FBI and told to infiltrate.
Oh, okay.
If I'm remembering the preview correctly, I've only seen it once. Sometimes my memory's a little fuzzy. It looks interesting, and it's like funny because it's Daniel Kaluuya. I'm pretty sure is English, right?
He is English.
And it's kind of funny because I mentioned your moniker, Sam L. That Sam L. was going to be upset because we have another Englishman playing a Black American character.
Yeah, no, because he made a comment. Didn't he say something along those lines that he was like, years
ago? Yeah, because they were in 12 Years a Slave and stuff like that. Because the English.
Yeah, but I mean, this is something that we've discussed as well.
Yeah, I think we've brought it up once or twice. Sam L. is upset about the English blokes getting the roles that he feels
playing
should
American
go to
playing American historical figures.
Right.
Well, some months back, maybe a year back, an article came out criticizing Black Panther film, and it was pretty much continental Africans questioning African Americans playing these characters.
So it goes around.
Remember, we discussed the article.
No, I think we did. Because we've said like, how far does this go? Because sometimes folks in the trans community feel like they hardly have any roles. They're very marginalized. Roles that they can play shouldn't be going to cis folks. Same thing in other communities. They feel like
people shouldn't go to cis folks.
What like a role of a trans. I think the idea is like folks who are underrepresented should be the first ones to get roles, right?
Well, if you look at Warrior Nun, right? There's a very famous trans person in the movie, in the TV series, right?
Okay.
At least the first act of the TV series. And
okay.
I'm only mentioning this because the person isn't playing a trans person.
Right.
The person is just playing a character that,
right.
A specific character. You know what I mean? So I thought that was interesting, and I thought that was good. If this person is famous, I didn't know the person was famous, but the person is like a famous model. It's a trans woman. She's a very famous model.
Yeah.
And she's very striking. you know, but she just plays squatter in a group of squatters.
Okay.
And,
There
you know,
was
they're not saying, oh, this is a trans woman, or, you know, it's just a trans woman cast in that role.
Right. There was talks of having, forgive me, I don't know the actress's name. One of the stars of Pose play Storm. I think I forwarded you that article that these were like
I don't know
fans.
what Pose is.
Pose is a show that came out on like the subculture of like 80s, what would you call it? Like
80s like underground club culture, like but with
The
like,
club
with,
kids?
yeah,
Yeah.
like the club kids, like these are like trans LGBT folks who like engage in like balls, you know, like
Yeah,
these like
there was a very celebrated documentary called Paris is Burning made about it in like
Right.
the early 1990s. And, you know, several of the people who participated, who were profiled in the film, you know, were amongst the people who showed Madonna how to
yes,
vote.
exactly, yes. I was gonna say Madonna is a key element in the show because she kind of took this culture and made it kind of transferred it from the underground to the mainstream, right?
Did she use them in her concert?
She
Oh, yeah.
used them in the yes, she did. One of them she did, and
That
actually
concert was brilliant.
Yep, and yes, it was, and is actually he's also featured prominently in the video for Vogue as well. And sadly, like most of the other people in it, he passed away from complications due to AIDS.
But it's
So
the
I just want to go out on a limb and say that I would absolutely be opposed to a trans person playing Storm.
playing Storm. I was gonna just tell you, I was just finishing up on Pose. I was going to say that yeah, it's a pretty exciting show because they're like there's a bunch of like dance battles. Like a big part of it is, you know, they're battling each other, and it's like some of
Yeah.
it is like some of it's like some like b-boy like break dancing type stuff, and then some of it's voguing, and like there's different like dance battle styles going on, but it's pretty exciting. But
Now-
go ahead with your controversial take.
And well, if it's controversial, it's not my intention. I want to preface that
I'm just messing with you. You're the voice of controversy.
If I just want to say, I say that with confliction, like I am conflicted, because I agree and understand that it's not even that I agree because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I agree or not. I understand and believe that a trans woman is a woman. So I think I'm conflicted, and my opposition comes from the fact that I have very high expectations for whomever is going to be cast as Storm. Period.
Okay.
And you understand why. Like I have a deep investment, in the casting of Storm because of how important and significant a character. I think she's the most important character in the history of comics, not named Superman. It's something that I talked about extensively, and the character Storm is not a trans person.
Okay. So can I just offer a counter point / question?
Well, I have
Sure.
an opinion on
and then
this
you
too.
Yeah,
Sure.
can I just
But like, yeah, Flavia, you go. Yeah, I
okay.
want Flavia.
So my counter point / question is: you just mentioned a movie or show where a trans person was playing a character that wasn't necessarily trans and did well in the show or the episode, and we
Well,
are
I don't
talking,
think whether the person did well or not matters. Go
okay
on.
okay. So if this person can act, why would they have to be relegated to only playing a trans role?
I didn't say that.
Okay, so why would why should this person not play the role of Storm. Then I'll just ask a simple. I won't ask I won't put anything in the question. I'll just ask you straight up, why should this person not play Storm?
So it always goes back to the same argument that I always have, right? So, and again, I want to preface that I am conflicted because it is my understanding and belief that a trans woman is a woman. I want to make sure that that is clear.
Yeah.
It always goes back, and I may even be being a hypocrite here, but it may be selfish hypocrisy, but it always goes back to the same thing, the same argument I've always made. I don't want a Black person to be Superman when we have Icon. So I don't want a Black guy to be James Bond because James Bond just isn't Black. And again, this may be superficial and I may be being a hypocrite, but for me, and it's personal for me because of the importance of who Storm is. And that doesn't mean if a trans woman plays her, it makes her less important. What I think it does is it changes the conversation. And when we talk about Storm, you know, and I told you this is something that I want to write about minority representation in comics. I think my Storm is the most significant Black character ever introduced in comics. I think it's kind of like when me and you had the conversation about casting Professor X as, you know, casting a Black person as Professor X. And my biggest concern was, well, doing that diminishes the importance of who? Storm.
Okay, so in answer, and then I'm going to pass to Sam because he's been
Yep, I'm
waiting.
interested in Sam's take.
Okay, so just final take before I pass it back to Sam is if a trans woman is a woman, then your analogy does not stand. It's not the same as casting a Black person as a white comic character. Now I'll pass it off to Sam.
Well, before you pass it off to Sam, I just want to say that I did say that I may be being hypocritical.
No, that's
I certainly am conflicted, but nonetheless, that's just how I feel.
No,
I want. Go on. I'm sorry.
No, I honor you in that, and I honor your boldness in being honest. But my statement still stands that if you're saying that a trans woman is a woman, then that analogy doesn't hold up. Then it's not the same as casting a Black character as a white character. It's the same as casting a woman as a woman.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay. Sam.
Okay, so I haven't really spoken with y'all at much length about this before, but I know this has come up before when I've been on this before-ish, and I think I did convey to you that I also really, really love Storm. Did that come up? Did I let you know that? I think I came.
Yeah, you did. You did.
I did. Yeah, I love Storm.
We did have this discussion.
Yeah. I think she's freaking fabulous, and I think that would really be invested in who was cast to play her. So here's the thing to me. I personally believe that when it comes to fictional characters, there's a little more, in my opinion, I feel like there should be a little more leeway in terms of who is allowed to play who, because if you're talented, then I feel like the talent should take precedence and people should have an open mind. So based on that, I personally, comic books and film are two different medium, which is a point that I also have made before here and other places. So based on that, I personally would be okay with a trans woman playing Storm. However, and now I may be getting a little controversial, on the flip side of that, if a lot of people in the trans community feel that trans characters should only be played by trans actors, then following their own logic, based on that, I don't think that Storm should be played by a trans woman. So,
I mean, that's a good point.
So in other words, leave it to the people who might actually be offended by it.
Wait, can I counterpoint that point? That is the law of the contrapositive that you just violated. It's a logical fallacy. So in other words, you're saying there's a difference between trans characters only being played by trans people and trans people being allowed to play any character. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, but what you're also doing is discounting the fact that trans people are conceding for the purposes of playing trans characters that they're trans people. But then they should be allowed to play any character, and they should be allowed to play any character. Then why differentiate between who should play trans characters?
Well, that's not. Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, listen. This is it's a label, and it's a label that has value. I mean, it's trans women of color that are being murdered at a great rate. So, I mean, I don't think in the fight for equality we pretend like the group doesn't exist, right? Like, I think there's a difference between saying a trans woman is a woman and just saying, like, don't even say trans at all, right? I mean, it's still a thing. It's still a demarcation, or, you know, it's still a distinction. But I guess my point is, there's a difference between saying let trans roles go to trans folks since they are marginalized and severely underrepresented, but also leave the door open for trans folks to also play anyone they want. I don't think that's a hypocritical statement. What I do agree with Sam saying is let the group decide amongst themselves. Not that they're a monolith, but you know, if there is some what's the word, consent amongst the group, then let that stand.
No, I think it's debatable.
Oh, sorry, and also Damien was in the queue for next up.
Yeah, if I could just throw some interesting things that came up, because I do like this little takeaway on the subject. You know, like, let's get serious about this for a second. We're looking at fact versus fiction, and I love that Sam kind of poked at that. And fiction, you know, when we talk about history, is this a really well-written fiction or a really poorly written fact that can only be induced? And we can't really deduce some things. We have to just kind of go with what we're given. But more importantly to the subject we're talking about is title versus role. And who we are can really dig quite a bit deeper than what we are. And I have to ask, is what we are more evident than the inherent nature of who we are? So in this case, we might say something like, when a title is won, a language is lost, which is to say, when you're the host, you know, I'm going to have a different language with you than a guest to a show. If you're the king or queen of the land, I'm going to have a different language, like sire, sir, madam, ma'am, when it comes to these conditions in the human condition we're getting back into a little bit here. But to kind of jump a little back into this fact fiction moment, I love comics and I love the art. I'm a big fan of art, any kind, size, shape, or form. I'm a little under a rock. I don't know too well, but Superman is a man from Krypton who wields the Class B sun anomalies, right? You know, like, he's just a man from Krypton, but here on Earth, he's like super because the sun is like different and gives him powers. And I wonder in this case, like, could Superman be played throughout any culture? Could someone from Krypton have different aspects to their cultural identification and become this super person, as we've seen with Superwoman, or as we've seen in maybe some other spin-offs? But then more direct to the point, Storm is a genetic mutation that controls weather anomalies, if I'm not mistaken, from what I've learned on my little surface understanding of the mutants and X-Men. And at this point, like, are there other mutants who have that ability? It's actually a really intense ability. You know, when we think about it, like the weather anomalies, the air around us, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. That's right up there with Magneto controlling the metal in your blood. I mean, it's very serious. But again, like, is this something that can only be appropriated by a culture? Is this a cultural appropriation question when we get into this? And then a good point to get into James Bond. I mean, James Bond is a code name. 007 could be anyone MI6 says it is. Kind of like a Doctor Who thing a little bit, but like, you know, Sean Connery, I mean, what if he just died in a mission and he was replaced with Pierce Brosnan? But no matter what, he's still on the 007 case. His code name is still Bond, James Bond. And that's his running title. You don't know if that could be coming from another place. He could have a different identity in civil society, but now when he's assumed the role, he gets the title James Bond, which changes the language. And then you get the Bond girls, the Bond villains, you get the Bond everything, because that title alters the language. And as a very like final point on this takeaway that I really liked, because we're really talking about a sensitive subject here with transgendered individuals. And to touch on this a little bit, I would like to see this as transgendered individuals are going through a transition. And where I come from, true nature and true gender is that nature. And if they feel that it's in their nature to identify as a gender that does not suit the original hormonal developments of their body, then perhaps we can allow them to explore and experiment at their own risk, because like any other operation in life, there's a risk, and at their own cost, because like any great wave of change, there will always be a sacrifice or a harsh trade-off along the way. And let those risks and considerations be taken into account, you know, at a mature level, at a mature age, at a mature understanding, at a mature culture, at a mature community, and in a mature environment. So in a mature environment, in a community where we're experimenting with comedy and tragedy and the divine dramas of life, where we're casting these roles, and we look at some of the historical examples of roles. I mean, we have men playing women at a certain point frequently, all the time, and then we see some women come in and play men in these plays, you know, plays. Not always so much in Hollywood. Hollywood has had a lot more options, a lot more available to them, and I mean, there's a lot of things surrounding what Hollywood has done with people and these options, and it's a little questionable, but perhaps another more serious issue for another conversation. But more than anything, can we allow these experiments to come into our everyday lives? Because we ourselves are experimenting, you know, with some of our idols and some of our appreciations and how we celebrate them. So how we celebrate Superman and Storm and James Bond, can we appreciate a little experimental nature thrown in there? And that's like kind of my final takeaway question, besides the first 3 questions I started off with.
Yeah, that was a dope take.
It was.
That was amazing. Yeah.
I want to say that, you know, speaking about, you know, fact and, you know, fiction, and, you know, touching on what you said, there's
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to acknowledge Cynthia's here.
Yes. Hey, Cynthia, what's good?
There's a lot of other ingredients in that pot, right? Like if you take James Bond, for instance, we know that when the character was created, you know, you have, and there's just 2 things I want to say really quick. So you have, and I guess from a creator's perspective, I understand, you know, social dynamics and, you know, and even, you know, looking at something and being able to appreciate it from a different perspective. However, if I create a thing, I would like the integrity of the thing that I created to be preserved. And, you know, in the case with James Bond was created probably in a time period and with a specific frame of mind, with a specific type of character in mind. So while we can appreciate that potentially anybody could be James Bond, we know that only one person has been James Bond. there hasn't been a, several different people, obviously several different actors have played the character, but it's always essentially the same character. One of the things that, another ingredient that I would like to throw into the pot is when we experiment on some levels, right? We have to question then what is the true purpose of this experimentation, in the sense that, take for instance Superman, right? If you take Superman and you turn him into a black person, why are we doing it? Are we doing it just because we want to appreciate a different perspective, or are we potentially trying to capitalize in a negative way off of the plight of people? And what I mean by that is, there are several characters on Superman's level that are black, that aren't being promoted, that aren't being pushed to the forefront, that people aren't going out to spend their money on to support. You have Icon, you have Blue Marvel, like all of these characters are Superman type characters. So I question, if you're going to take, say, a Michael B. Jordan and you're going to cast him in the role of Superman, what is your motivation? Is it to actually capitalize off of the plight of, let's say, the black culture? Why won't you cast Michael B. Jordan in the role of Icon, who's already a black Superman type character? Or why not cast Michael B. Jordan in the role of the Blue Marvel, who's already a black Superman type character? So then I have to question the motivation, and it has nothing to do with the Storm topic. I'm just speaking of, a Superman or a James Bond topic. When we have characters that already exist, and another, it brings another question, why aren't we creating more characters that represent marginalized people and promoting these characters?
I have a question. With Superman hailing from another planet, another part of the universe, his name being Kal-El, and him getting his power from the sun, would a darker Superman have more power because of how he gets his power from the sun? Would melanin affect how much power he's drawing here on Earth?
The black Supermen that exist in DC don't have any more power than Superman.
Okay, all right.
I'd like to say something about appropriation and transmutation of characters. One of them, it was specifically Superman. When I first heard of the concept for Red Sun, I never thought it would work. And then when I saw it as a comic book, it worked beautifully, better than many of the Superman stories that I've ever read over the years. And I have to say that at a certain point, I think that if we enforce these character rules, that this can only be this and this can only be that, I think we have to be careful, like Ish says, of exploitation. But I also take Damien's point that without experimentation we can't grow as a culture. And that's all I wanted to say, real quick.
Also, I really like the follow the money idea you just threw in there. Like, why are we doing this to our cultures and putting them when there's totally perfectly good examples, which I don't really know much about. So I like that you brought some of those other characters to light. But that's a really good follow the money point. I like that.
Yeah, in general, I have to agree that we really should be exploring these other characters too, especially if there are characters that were specifically written for Black folks. I mean, all of the characters, all of the comics that Ish, follows that are like Black comics are very interesting, and they just add more flavor to the universe of comic books. So
that's one thing. I don't want to cut you off. I want to speak to your point really quick. That's one thing you guys will see if you follow me on Facebook. Not so much comics, but on my personal Facebook page, I'm always promoting the comic books that represent marginalized people. You'll always see me posting, just to give people an idea of what's out there. Like, it is here. Spend your money on it. Support it. Let's make it hot so that we can see these things manifest in other forms of media.
Yeah, and a lot of these are very interesting comic books, and I think I think it's dope to support a lot of the indie stuff that's come out, and it's just more diverse. And instead of, maybe focusing on yet another iteration of Spider-Man or Superman, we can get into some of these other interesting comic books and hopefully see them represented on film as well. Because I'm not as big of a comic person as some of the folks on this panel are, but I'm certainly into seeing them represented on film and definitely in animation. And it would be beautiful to see, to see more representation there. And some of the stuff that I've seen Ish put up is very interesting, like thought-provoking, exciting stuff, and like the more that we have the Ryan Cooglers and folks in power who can tell our own stories, like the better and more authentic these stories are going to be. And we're getting more representation, and we're getting more folks, with the power and the platform to tell these stories. And also, everyone, welcome Cynthia to the fold. Cynthia is here a lot, but she's kind of like a special guest in the sense that she's not here every time. So Cynthia sighting is always exciting.
I'm here most of the time.
Does everyone agree with that? Is Cynthia here most of the time?
Oh my God!
This is the first time I see Cynthia, so perhaps I'm not the best judge.
I have to agree. I have to agree as well.
She's here most of the time?
Yeah.
I agree that I agree that she's special.
Okay.
Everybody's special.
She's here more often than not.
Okay, so maybe like 55% of the time.
No, 75% of the time.
Okay.
Flavius, I see your number. You're stingy. You're stingy with your percentages, sir.
Ish, why did you decide to show your face?
I've been showing my face off and on this particular.
Look at that.
Yeah, whenever you feel like.
I've been going dark for specific reasons. This particular.
He shows his face most of the time.
I feel like the sunglasses hoodie combo, that may be like a good. That may be like your. That may be like your
calling
costume.
card.
Yeah, that might be like your costume. That was a good one.
Yeah, that was 2 days of sunglasses and hoodie. But it's it's nighttime in here, so when it's during the day and I have the blind open and the sun is beaming in, I need the glasses.
All right, we got. Are those the Ray-Bans?
I don't know what they are.
Oh no, I was talking to Sam. Sam threw on his glasses.
Yeah.
Sometimes people wear sunglasses at night.
That's right. To
They
spy
even wrote a song about it.
To spy on their girlfriend. That's right.
No, I just thought. I mean, I thought I would represent. When the normal characters can't do it, I figured I would just throw them on to show some love. So. Yeah,
no doubt. It reminds me of the cool '80s characters. You might have to definitely throw those back on when we're getting into the script reading.
Oh yeah. For sure.
Get into the '80s flavor.
A cool real life hero character that just came to mind to me, who is a transgendered character that I'd love to see in a movie. I know there's a few documentaries. Marsha P Johnson.
Yeah.
And, this would be an interesting thing because I was really trying to jog through my head, like, how many transgendered roles are there really set up to be played, which is why I kind of went back to my point on nature that, there's really only one gender. It's nature, and however you naturally feel, that's how you naturally are, and naturally embrace that nature. To get caught in this middle ground is kind of difficult, and it's hard to exactly appropriate in some ways, and in other ways it's actually really beautiful. Marsha P Johnson would be a great example of a real life hero character coming from the either really well played fictional story of our history or the really sloppy gathered facts of our history. I don't know if there is a movie. I just know there's a documentary. I know there's no comic books about her or anything, but That would be a cool character to see.
Yes, it would. Yes, it really would. I think it would be I would think it would be great to tell a story about her. I think a movie should be made about her. I hope it's respectful and faithful to the facts, and I hope they find the right person to play her. Yeah, I think I agree. I
And
also
she's-
put
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just gonna say. However, also on a personal stance, I will defend Boys Don't Cry and the casting of Hilary Swank in that role to the end, because I thought that movie was brilliant, and I thought she was brilliant in it. So, if anybody wants to come for me on that, I'll be happy to take it.
He's like, come at me, bro.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, Marsha P Johnson was pretty much like the mother of the recent the mother of like basically LGBT rights based on the clash in New York City, right?
Yeah, Stonewall riots. She was the real. They made
Basically
a
where we
movie-
left the movement off, where everything
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stopped moving.
She
And
popped
they
it
made
off.
a
Yeah,
mo-
she popped it off.
Yeah, they made a yes. So I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut people. I don't mean to cut anybody off.
No, go
They
ahead.
made a movie about the Stonewall riots a few years ago, and it was directed by Roland Emmerich, who is gay, but they cast like a good-looking white cisgendered gay man like as the lead, and it was totally a fictional character and totally not representative at all of most of the people there who actually sparked it off. So
Right, so it was
That's-
whitewashed. So it was, yeah, it kind of moved the marker from the black trans woman who popped it off
yep,
to like white
Exactly.
to white folks, right?
exactly.
Yeah, and that
Yep.
even goes into
It was
the
kind of bleached.
yeah, and that even goes into some of the the parades that they have like every year, or what is it? Well, I guess like the gay Pride Month. I see a lot
Yeah.
of commercials, and it's like all white people. It's just like white after white after white person. And it's like all like middle to like upper middle class white folks.
Well, there
So-
are a lot of white people at the parades, but they could do well to go around and like show the entire spectrum of who's there.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not-
I mean, not the parades, but like Gay Pride Month, right? So they're not just. It's not just
I
a
see what you're
commercial.
saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's not just a
sorry.
commercial showing the parade. It's like a commercial that's supposed to be showing, the embodiment of gay pride in New York
yeah,
City.
okay,
which
now I
we
understand
got
what
a
you're saying.
few.
Okay, yeah.
Well, not just New York City, but you know what I mean.
No, yeah.
Yeah, but different cultures think differently, I think, about being LGBT to begin with. I mean, say, for example, like what I know of is like in the Latinx community, there's a large, how do I phrase this? There's a large sentiment of men wanting to have machismo. And
Yeah.
so therefore, like gay males are looked down upon in the in the Latinx community, for example.
Same
Yeah.
same as in the black community.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
totally.
my culture is completely machismo, and
What is machismo?
it's
It's like-
misogynist. It's misogynist with a L
Macho
instead
bent.
of a the. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a macho band.
I laugh, but it's not funny. I grew up around it. It was awful. It takes a lot to deprogram yourself from it when it becomes your standard. But it takes time for a culture to change, especially a culture as old as Hispanics are. It's just, and typically we don't all think the same way. We're all from different countries. We represent different ethnicities inside of the culture. So it's difficult. It's a difficult process to go through.
Hey, before anyone else hops in, I just wanted to finish the sentiment that, like, while I agree with what you're saying, Emily, my sentiment was about representation. Like, the people who make these videos, like, choose who's going to be in the video. So it's not like they're like, Latinx community still has some way to go. We're gonna like choose to ignore the myriads of LGBT folks in their community. Oh, the Black community, still has a way to go. So we're gonna ignore all of them and only put white people in this video. Like this was a whitewashed video, and it's just another example of the way that like capitalism and white supremacy kind of like rears its head, even when we're trying to focus on marginalized groups. So that was my point. Like I get what you're saying.
Well, I'm not disagreeing, but
Yeah.
like kind of like in my mind, like I'm thinking, and maybe somebody with a little more experience with this can correct me because I don't know. Like I don't normally go to like pride events and whatnot, not because I'm not proud of like myself, but because I can't stand like large crowds of people. So my question is like, is there like say you're making like a commercial that's filming people at a specific pride event, like is there like, it's kind of like a chicken and egg scenario, like is there less representation potentially at these events to begin with because of like,
Well, it's a commercial. I mean, you could
cultures?
it's a commercial. You could go to any gay club and see lots of people of color.
Yeah,
right? Like it's
you
not
can
just.
choose. Yeah, Flavy's
can-
right. You can, and when you're making a commercial, you can pick and choose who you want to be in the commercial. So,
I mean, this is true. I
Yeah.
don't deny that. Like I'm just, and I think you're right. I'm just
I mean,
wondering.
you could just put out a casting call with specific criteria.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
that simple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I guess like what I'm saying is that the question that you're asking kind of led me to think like in the different direction of how like the experience of being LGBT is different, like dependent upon other intersecting cultures.
Sure.
Mhm.
Well, that's why, a lot of people come to some of the bigger cities. They want to enjoy places where they feel like people have more of an open mind and there's more diversity, right?
And they'll be accepted.
Yeah, and they'll be
Yeah,
accepted.
but even in New York, like, I mean, I feel like that there's a large percentage of LGBT people, even in New York, men especially, in the Black community, who are like, there's a reason why like people say like on the down low, like there's a place where that phrase came from, because there's still a lot of people who are embarrassed.
That's what I was going to speak on earlier, and it's not necessarily just embarrassment. In the Black culture, it's almost dangerous to be a Black male member of the LGBT community. Not in all cases, but in many cases. Hence why we
It's
have
like a
the
kiss
down
of death.
low or the underground, and it's because it's not necessarily embarrassment, right? It comes with ridicule. It comes, in some levels, it could be met out with violence. So I'm going to pretend to be straight. But in reality, and it's interesting because when I used to hang on the block, right, gay guys were never accepted. Lesbian women were. Like, I've stood on the block and hustled with at least 3 different women that were lesbians. Never was, and if I'm sure I've hung out with guys that were gay. I just don't know that they were gay. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
We're
'Cause
part of the community.
I read an article, a
Do you think
magazine
that's
article.
I'm sorry, Emily, go ahead.
I read a magazine article like a while back that talked about like Black men who were on the down low, and these were like very masculine, like on the block men that they were that they were interviewing, but they were kind of like, how do I phrase this, like screwing around with each other, admitting under a pseudonym because they didn't want it published in a magazine, that they were like screwing around with each other and couldn't tell a darn soul. You know what I mean?
I mean, it almost takes away from your street cred, right? Like, are we really supposed to believe that Michael Sam is the only member of the LGBT community in the National Football League.
Or
Right.
Jason Collins
Right.
in the NBA.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Or, exactly. Or in hip hop, right? Like there's nobody
Oh,
in hip hop who's a member of the LGBT community.
Only
you know.
Tyler, the creator, who was denying
Right.
it for a long time too.
Right. But he,
And this is
and it
actually the
sucks
first
because he
time I'm-
probably, go on, I'm sorry. Go on.
Sorry, no, I was going to say that's actually the first time I even heard of that. So that's how far, I mean, I didn't even know he was, yeah, okay, wow, I need to catch up on that.
First of all, Tyler, the creator, is brilliant. Not as a rapper, but as an overall entertainer.
As a human being, I think I've maybe heard one of his songs, but he's every time I hear him speak, I'm like, I need to hear this. I need to listen to him more. He's so smart. It's amazing.
I will say that I don't think he could have gotten to where he is had he came out as openly gay.
You mean if he had came out as openly gay?
Had he come out as openly gay, I don't think we would be having a Tyler the Creator.
In the beginning, you mean?
Right, in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning, I agree.
I need to get into his music more. Yeah.
I think you should watch Loiter Squad. I think you should watch his sketch comedy. That's really where he's brilliant. His music is okay, but the overall package, he's so creative. His sketch comedy, like Loiter Squad, it comes on Adult Swim. It might be on again. It used to come on. I know. I just saw an episode the other day, so I'm like, oh, Loiter Squad is back. It's just sketch comedy, and it's all out of the brain of Tyler the Creator. There's a crew of them, and it's great sketch comedy, and it just shows you how brilliant this guy is.
Speaking of machismo and representation and film, the character of Omar in The Wire was that was a very interesting character because it was
bold.
Yeah, bold. Based on a real person also, but it's
yes. Yeah,
you can be considered macho, you can be very feared, you can be very cool even, but you're comfortable in your own skin and you're representing just not a stereotype at all.
The Wire has to be one of the best shows I've ever seen on TV, bar none.
Yeah, and if you watch it
his
again,
character is dynamic, though.
His character is dynamic. Yeah, not a stereotype.
Something interesting happened with this character, right? You got the black culture to completely ignore that he was gay.
Yeah,
and it probably because they made him so gangster.
You know what I mean?
This guy was just so gangster that the black culture just ignored that he was gay and embraced him, which is just this is an exception.
That actor is very interesting too, by the way. He's very
Michael K. Williams.
Yeah, Michael K. Williams. He's you won't really get him to he won't really put himself in a box. You ask him specific questions, and he's he leaves things open, so you don't even know I don't know. He's just an interesting question.
I think I saw him once in Brooklyn, but I can't confirm because I was too shy to go up to him and talk to him.
Yeah. He wouldn't confirm.
I couldn't see a star or not. I was like, fuck, I don't want to approach him.
Yeah, he wouldn't confirm. He wouldn't confirm what his. I don't know. I'm not going to say he would confirm his sexuality, but whether his sexuality.
Are we talking the character or the actor now?
The actor, Michael K. Williams. Yeah.
The character confirmed it.
Yes, the character confirmed it. Yep. What I was going to say is the one of the rappers, Manny Fresh from New Orleans was he was talking about this issue of acceptance of gay folks in New Orleans, and he basically said that people don't care, and then he went on this side vent about people like Omar who were well known down in New Orleans, and he was just basically saying that there's a plethora of people and that it's very diverse, and that gay folks are accepted, and that some of them are like Omar. They're there's killers, there's all types of people like that. It was very interesting because it wasn't something that I'd really heard him or other rappers talk about, but I guess it just came up in the conversation. Might have been a DJ Vlad thing, and it was just like an interesting take.
That is interesting. Flavy, I wanted to ask you a second ago, before you corrected yourself, were you about to say Frank Ocean?
No, but I was thinking Frank Ocean,
Okay.
because he's down with Tyler, the creator.
Yeah.
But no, I don't remember almost saying his name.
Okay.
But I was definitely thinking it, unless we're doing that psychic connection thing again.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm glad. That's the reason that I asked is because I wanted to mention him for a second, because I actually have had a couple of people, a couple of friends, a couple of straight friends who were like, I know I'm on good terms with, and who, you know, obviously I wouldn't consider them homophobic because they're very cool with me, but they told me that they actually think that the reason that Frank Ocean has done as well as he had is because he came out, and that got him sympathy, because they don't think his music is all that good. And I think that they think that he used his the novelty of him being like openly gay as like a way to like sell more records.
That is first of all.
Have you heard that? Have
No.
you heard that one?
That's first of all, that's in. I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, that's wrong on a lot of levels. I mean, first
also,
of all,
whether someone's a good artist is a matter of opinion.
Right.
Yeah, but I would say like that's the kind of opinion, like, is Marvin Gaye a good artist? Sure, you can say it's opinion, but Marvin Gaye's a fucking good artist. Frank Ocean's fucking dope, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Frank Ocean is dope. So here's what happened when Frank came out. Frank was so fucking good that no one gave a shit. And as a matter of fact, Frank was so good that people definitely came out in support of him. You know, even some people who have probably made some off-color remarks because people didn't want to get on his bad side, because you want to collaborate with Frank Ocean. That's how good he is. You know?
mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of like when 50 Cent pulled this is going to be a weird analogy, but when 50 Cent pulled Rick Ross's gangster card and, you know, showed that he used to be a
corrections officer,
and no one gave a shit because Rick Ross makes dope fucking music in a genre where usually that would have been toxic, like, get away from me, I'm not doing music with a former corrections officer. It's like no one gave a shit. So I think your friends, Sam, have it completely wrong, and I think there might be a little bit of a weird thing there for them to be saying that. Are you saying my volume's low, Damien?
Yeah, your volume.
Oh shit.
So I'd like to hear what Damien and or Raul has to say on this specific topic.
Well, I would hate to follow Damien because Damien knocks it out of the park. So I'm just going to start talking. Let me be very honest. One of the things that I noticed when you were talking, Ish, and that I feel myself. Oh wait, I'm out of focus. There we go. In the Latin culture, it's very much like the Black culture, how it treats its LGBTA community. And one of the things that I noticed is because the women that you were with were quote unquote acting masculine enough to pass. I think that's a form of misogyny that we have to deal with, and that although a lot of people wouldn't understand, but it's true. And I can only say the same thing in my experience, that the gay men that I've been with, as far as friends and family and all that, they have to work twice as hard to get the acceptance from the same people that the gay women do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that is, but I have a feeling it's a type of misogyny.
I think I agree with you.
Definitely is. That's a problem in any culture, I think. Like, that's just like a toxic masculinity problem, I feel.
Yes.
It is. I think toxic masculinity is really the right label to put on it. Like, it really is. And it's something I think that could be explored. You know, obviously from your experiences, they kind of parallel mine in that, you know, I have friends, some of them, one of them in particular will probably come on one of these shows at some point, but you know, who I'm speaking of, you know, but I have at least 3 friends that I regularly stood on the block with, all of them, you know, women that I regularly stood on the block with, and, you know, we hustled together, you know, and I can't tell you any guy that I know that was openly gay that was standing on the block that, you know, I've never experienced it. You know, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, you know, because obviously, you know, Mike was just describing something through, you know, what Manny Fresh said. So I'm sure there are other cultures, other aspects in, you know, in other areas of the country, you know, culture changes, so to speak. But,
Well, you're
you know,
also
where I'm
speaking
from,
like 20 years ago, too.
I mean, still, yeah.
Why you gotta age?
I mean,
why you gotta
I
age
still,
the man like that?
well, the thing is,
Hey, there's gray in this
still,
beard too, Emily. Don't
Right.
hurt us now. We're sensitive people.
listen, I still ride through the hood. Like, I'm
Yeah.
still considered an
hasn't
OG
changed.
where I'm
Game
from.
hasn't
You know what I mean? I still ride through my hood, and you know, I don't forget where I came from. You know what I mean? I'm still welcome on my block.
I'm seeing you in like a Cadillac with like nice rims, just like rolling through, and like somebody like
It was a Charger. It was
somebody
a Charger.
looks at you like that and like
With a great
you the head
stereo
nod.
system with
It
bass.
was it was a Charger.
that was 50 had a great song. Still be riding through the hood.
Yeah, I still roll through my hood. Quite often.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, so
Ish,
speaking
why
of
do you
which,
feel like homosexuality, especially amongst men, is so looked down on in the streets?
I think it's in the Black culture. I think there's 2 reasons. There's two things that come to mind. One, I think they look at it as a sign of weakness.
Why?
I don't know. I think
If anything, it should be a sign of strength.
Right, but I think it's just this. So it kind of stems from, and which is the second reason. You know, there's this militant aspect of the Black culture that looks at homosexuality as a form of genocide, as a way of
Population control.
Decreasing the surplus population.
stopping the
Yet not when it's 2 women.
Well, that's interesting, right? Therein lies the hypocrisy. Everything about this is hypocritical. We're talking about an inherent hypocrisy, a flaw
it's patriarchal.
Yeah, it is.
in the way of thinking,
Social
right? Because,
engineering.
you know, Cynthia, you know, to really drive home, you know, what I'm saying to you, right? Black people shouldn't discriminate against anybody for any reason, especially because of where we came from in this country, like our history in this country, but yet we do. You see what I'm saying? So there's, you know, we're speaking to a hypocrisy, and like Mike said, patriarchal thinking.
Hey, were there straight women who hustled with you on the block?
Let me think.
Or bisexual women. Don't
It's
invalidate
interesting because
bisexuals.
Oftentimes people use identities as a layer of protection. So like for someone hustling in the street who's a female, if she can put in her identity that she's not interested in men, that saves her some trouble having to deal with some men that may be a little aggressive towards her. A lot of my
right, because we're misogynistic, right? Like if she's a straight female and she's hustling, we're not taking her serious.
Right, and in fact,
Go on. No, go on.
I'm in agreement with you. I mean, I've seen it, and it's very real. Where there's this layer that comes in as a means of protection. It's a part of a psychic defense in some respect, if you want to say so. And that's the whole point. Is where like men, when they're gay, they're being penetrated in homosexuality. Their defenses are being taken advantage of in some cases. Women in
Unless they're a top.
What's it?
Unless they're a top.
Yeah, but even still.
Yeah, you're still in the realm where this is
You're still wasting your seed. You're wasting your seed. You're not using it to procreate.
Right.
Right, and I'm speaking off the cuff. I mean, I really should kind of dial back a little. You know, when an artist is good at their art, it goes back to that who you are versus what you are. And the whole thing is like in the art of the hustle, you know, because we can talk about paintings and music and poetry. We could talk about a lot of arts, but the art of the hustle, that's like that there's your economic candidates right there, the art of the hustle. And
You'd be surprised who I picked up.
well, the whole thing here ends up being that we're talking about class, race, and gender. And class, race, and gender issues are social engineering methods across the board. When we think, like Latin culture example, there's some flamboyance. Living La Vida Loca, that was a hit. People loved that. And they didn't really even have any second guesses. If you were in the homosexual community, you knew what Living La Vida Loca was about. And if you weren't, you just thought, this is a great dance jam. I love everyone dancing to it.
Interesting.
And
well, the record labels were trying to keep Ricky as straight as possible in every possible way. They had a vested interest in keeping him straight for as long. Ricky Martin.
Notice how he was able to use that flamboyance that you're not really going to see in the African American community.
Are you saying that song was his attempt to kind of like speak his truth even while being like held?
It was cold.
It's so hard to speak for somebody, especially an artist, Sure. I would just say that I saw it in between cultures. I saw it between people, friends of mine who were, identifying in homosexuality. They were like, oh, this is my opening, this is my come out moment, this is my empowerment. And people that were straight listening to the song were just like, yeah, I like the way girls dance to the song. This is
I didn't know that until you just said it. Of course, I've never been a Ricky Martin fan, but still.
Yeah. No, not either, but it was pop culture. It was sensationalist. And I have a lot of friends from a lot of different places with the capacity for a lot of opposing views. So I get kind of a good take on some things that other people might have missed because someone wouldn't trust them to say something like that. But I've had the, capacity to really hold on to that kind of trust with people. And it's endearing, and I protect them in that respect because I know that's not something they would normally talk about. But seeing that at a young age too. I mean, having sleepovers with friends who are telling me some things where I'm like, which bunk are you going to sleep in? Because I definitely, we're getting to a little space. There's a little uncomfortable, awkward situations that come with that, but there's a capacity for it to allow somebody to kind of speak their mind and be free. But, again, back to the art of the hustle and the art in general, the who you are versus what you are moment. Why I was bringing up class, race, and gender as a engineering methods that leave some of our true values neglected, some of our true who we are that we give up to play a role for what we are. And on the street, if I'm hustling, what I am is a bigger deal than who I am. And in fact, letting someone to get to know who I am might even be dangerous for me and my family. So true family values will have me protect who I am with a presentation on what I am. And
sorry. I was just going to say another thought before, unless you have more, we're going to think about transitioning to the next hour.
Final question. The final question
I would like to add some comments before we move on.
Yeah, I think we can stick here for a bit, play this out.
Okay.
The final question was just the nature of the beast versus the nature of the game. And the question is, what really changed? And can you follow the chains? Because at a certain point, I would be willing to venture into the notion that the nature of the beast changes all the time. And we rearrange these chains that we're chained to in all of this change, but the nature of the game has always remained the same. And that's following the money.
You are a spitter, man. Is that freestyle or is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I was rolling kind of through I started off with the cuff, but I kind of dialed back to some central points. I mean, these are things that I get into a lot of conversations with people about. Like I said, I share a lot of opposing views with people, so I've had a chance to kind of exercise my mind around some common points, and that's a lot of these verses that I do.
Yeah, that's the nature of freestyle. You have.
I found my ghostwriter.
Yep, you have a few common themes that you go back to, but it's off the cuff. And speaking of hidden themes in songs, I've heard that "Coming Out" was not necessarily written as a coming out song for gay folks, but certainly adopted. Does anyone know? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so even if we do continue, I'm just gonna press stop